It's September 28th, 2018, and you're watching Battleground. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you, thanks so much for tuning in. As you know, our commander, Ezra, he's over in the UK covering a very important trial that I know you're following. So you've got the dynamic duo filling in. I'm David the Menzoid Menzies, and over in Alberta we have Sheila the She-Devil Gun Reed. How you doing there, Sheila?
I'm great. I've never been called that before, but I am going to put that on a business card.
Well, there you go. It's 6 figures of free consulting advice for you.
Yeah.
And we should, right off the bat, we did say the date, and it's what happened on this day in history that is very important to Canadians from coast to coast, Sheila. Putting on the spot.
I have no idea.
Oh,
I have no idea.
Paul Henderson winning the Summit Series. Yeah, 1972. How
many
could
people
you
do you
forget
think
that?
got that?
Pardon me?
How many people do you think got that at home, David?
You know what, folks? That's the first thing. If that was important to you, because Sheila, I'm going to give you a little history lesson here, not a sporting lesson.
Oh, great.
Back then, in the dark old days of the Iron Curtain, this wasn't an 8-game exhibition hockey series. This was us versus them, capitalism versus communism, free enterprise versus whatever they call their system of economic communism in the Soviet Union. It was something that you couldn't even script. I mean, the idea that you had an 8-game series in which one game goes to a tie, so it's a best-of-7 series, and Canada comes back from daunting odds and wins with just, I think it was 34 seconds left. Paul Henderson scores. And folks, the shame of this, the shame of the hockey community is that this man, Paul Henderson, who had people on their feet, even people who weren't hockey fans, screaming and cheering and slaying the USSR monster, is still not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's shameful, and I hope this horrible mistake is changed before Mr. Henderson passes from this earth. There, that's my rant on hockey talk, Sheila.
Well, I'm not discounting the historical importance of the event. I just don't think a lot of people have it marked on their calendars the way you do.
You know what? Maybe so, and it's not a typical anniversary date of like the 25th anniversary, the 50th history. It's kind of, just an odd random number. But I'll tell you, back in the day, I think I was in grade 6 or grade 4, or maybe a smaller grade, and school shut down, Sheila, for this game. I mean, it was during the afternoon hour on a weekday, and they brought in these big black and white TVs, and we sat there, and that's how important it was. And, we should never, it can never be replicated again because, the Soviet Union is gone and you have Russians playing in the NHL like anyone else. So it's a very special time. And next time you're at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, folks, well, don't give them too much a hard time. They're just working there. But, make sure the people there know that you really think Paul Henderson should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I can tell you this, Sheila, I think one of the reasons he's being kept out is because after the Summit Series, Paul Henderson became a devout Christian. And his, evangelism, or his proselytization, whatever you want to call it, kind of rubbed some people on the selection committee the wrong way. That's what I was told by an insider in confidence. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's not there. And if that's true, that's doubly shameful.
Well, David, just to go back to your point about the schools closing down, I think the schools closed down for you when Queen Victoria was in mourning. And I just want to get you back on track so that you can tell everybody at home what exactly we're doing here and how this whole thing works.
Okay. Well, you may as well take it from here because I usually control the computer, but folks, it's like, Captain Kirk walks into the bridge of the Enterprise and his chair is missing and Lieutenant Uhura has it. So you take over, my friend.
Okay, so I don't know who at home has tuned in the past to watch Ezra do a much better job of hosting Battleground than David and I do, but Oh, great. Someone has a super chat. So what you can do is for $1.99, $5, whatever you want to give us, you can have your super chat highlighted and we'll be forced to read it out, whatever, or answer whatever question you've asked us. If it's $5 or more, it'll be pinned at the top so that everybody can see it for a while. And it's how we sort of pay the bills around here. What keeps David in those beautiful bumblebee ties.
And folks, $5, that's like, I don't think you can even get a coffee at Starbucks for $5 and $1.99. Wow, I mean, even Dollarama has things on the shelf that are $3 or $4. So, I mean, come on, it's not a lot of money. And you know what? If you come up to the plate, like Sheila suggested, and we raise a lot of money here, oh, that'll go over big time with the boss. Big time when Ezra gets back here on Monday, because he's watching things, isn't he, Sheila?
Well, he says he watches things. You know what, though? We have a super chat. It's from Nigel. Just let me scroll back up here. It's from Nigel. He gives us £2. And what he says is free Jeremy Bamber, UK, 33 years, caged unjustly. Nigel, I'm sorry. I'm happy to have read out your super chat, but it's pretty obscure for me out here on the windswept Canadian prairie. I'm sorry, I don't really know the reference there. Unless David does. David, you're on the spot. Do you know that reference?
I can't say I do. We do have a Welshman in the studio as one of our trained broadcast professionals. He's nodding no too. But you know what I'll do, Nigel? Out of respect for your generous donation, when we're off the air, I'll look it up and I'll see if this is an issue worthy of campaigning about, but I don't know the particulars of this case. I'm sorry.
David, do you know what our first topic that we had in mind to talk about is today?
I do indeed, aside from Paul Henderson's magic goal, of course. Senator Graham unleashes during Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. Now, I think even as we speak, this is a story in progress. Sheila, what do you make of this, Professor Ford? I'm sorry, it's one of two ways. Either this happened as she says, or it didn't happen as he says. But I will say this, from a legalistic point of view, no corroboration, no witnesses, no evidence, not the kind of case I want to take on as a lawyer. What do you say?
The only corroboration that exists is from Kavanaugh. Even Ford's own witnesses are contradicting her version of events. Now, I'm not saying that something didn't happen to Mrs. Ford, but I am absolutely convinced that Kavanaugh didn't do it to her. You know how a couple weeks ago we really got into the weeds because we were talking about sex robots coming to a neighborhood near you? Like, it was a very weird conversation. I thought it was weird. You were more concerned about the logistics of it all, like how do they keep them clean, which I think is pretty revealing.
I think
about
that's germane to the point. I think that's very important. I'm sorry. Okay, folks, I apologize. I'm into hygiene. Anyways, go ahead, Sheila.
Yeah, anyways. The more I watch these Kavanaugh hearings and the more I watch what they are doing to this pretty decent man by all accounts, all credible accounts say he's a decent man, that's why there are sex robots. Like, if men never want to have anything to do with us women ever again and turn to sex robots, I will point to the Kavanaugh hearings as the tipping point and the reason why. Actually,
you know what, Sheila, on a more practical course, I was having a conversation with Lady Menzoid the other day, and she is in Kavanaugh's camp, and what she thought is how women are doing themselves a disservice by always saying that because it's a woman making these allegations, we have to believe her. She has to be telling the truth. She is a survivor. And what Lady Menzoid told me, and I never thought of it this way, is that next time a company is hiring, do we really want somebody that might be a potential troublemaker on staff, i.e. a woman where it's always the benefit of the doubt going to her if it's a he said, she said situation? I think that is troubling.
I do too. You know what? I think we have a super chat about just this. For $10 from Turbo Jones, love that name.
Yeah.
He says, I know what happened. Both are right. However, Kavanaugh saw it as total horseplay, thus absolutely no recollection of it, because she keeps describing it as sexual, which explains the laughter. I am going to disagree. I think that Kavanaugh absolutely doesn't remember this because it absolutely didn't happen. This guy took meticulous notes about his life, even as a teenage boy. And I have a 20-year-old son. Just the idea that he would keep a calendar is beyond me. But Kavanaugh was so organized that he did.
You know, but that's not to say he could have selectively deleted things that were unsavory. But Sheila, I think this raises the point of how far back in some person's life do we go? I mean, I think you, our audience, think of yourself today in this day and age, at your age, in your position of society, your position in whatever career path you are, and what you were like in high school, what you were like in elementary school, the things you did, the things you may have said. I mean, is this the new normal, Sheila, that anyone running for any kind of public office, the sleuths are going to go down to the high school yearbook and comb through it for anything, an off-color joke, a remark that's not politically correct by today's standards? Is this the new normal?
I think it is, but I think the left is going to be sorry that they asked for it. For all intents and purposes, Kavanaugh seems like a pretty moral, upstanding guy. But the left, for the better part of 2 decades now, they've actually made all manner of perversion and behavior completely acceptable. And so in 10 or 15 or 20 years, when we're going back on the life events of a leftist appointee, I think we're going to find out some strange things that actually did happen. You know what? One amazing thing, though, that came out of these Kavanaugh hearings was this sort of coalescing of the sort of divided conservative movement in the United States. There are never Trumpers, full Trumpers, and the sort of good Trump, bad Trump people who sort of go back day by day. But they are all coalescing around these Kavanaugh hearings. And I think we have an incredible clip from yesterday's hearing that I think Mr. Producer could bring up for us.
Are you aware that at 9:23 on the night of July the 9th, the day you were nominated to the Supreme Court by President Trump, Senator Schumer said, 23 minutes after your nomination, I will oppose Judge Kavanaugh's nomination with everything I have. I have a bipartisan, and I hope a bipartisan majority will do the same. The stakes are simply too high for anything less. Well, if you weren't aware of it, you are now. Did you meet with Senator Dianne Feinstein on August 20th?
I did meet with Senator Feinstein.
Did you know that her staff had already recommended a lawyer to Dr. Ford?
I did not know that.
Did you know that her and her staff had this allegations for over 20 days?
I did not know that at the time.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsay said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy.
Oh, Sorry, Sheila, I was momentarily distracted by the attractive blonde sitting behind Mr. Kavanaugh. But you know, but
Okay, just for a second here, can we talk about what we just saw there? Something I was unclear even existed, and that is Lindsey Graham's balls. Where did those come from? I love Lindsey Graham now, and I can't even believe it.
Yeah, no, that was a very impassioned speech, and I think he nailed, he really nailed it with that. But you know, here's the thing, Sheila, getting back to whether or not he's guilty and whatever happened decades ago, we always talk about how the left loves the idea of diversity as our strength, and we're pro-diversity, but it's not about diversity of thought anymore, because if you take a contrary view of the Kavanaugh, case on gender lines, suddenly you're ostracized. And right here in Canada, I mean, we're an independent nation of the U.S. We have nothing to do with what's going on here. There was a story. There's 3 Calgary city councillors, females, that are now refusing to give interviews to the Calgary Herald because they ran an opinion piece in which the writer supported Kavanaugh. So basically their position is, we believe that she's a survivor without any evidence, mind you, and therefore to put your support behind Kavanaugh, therefore you are invisible to us. We do not give interviews. And thankfully the Calgary Herald is not apologizing or retracting, but doing the right thing, that they're going to run opinion pieces that go the other way. But what do you make of that, Sheila? The fact that 3 city councillors at Calgary City Hall, simply because they're female, are saying that A, she's right, and B, if you disagree with that as a member of a media organization, we now ban you as a media organization.
Okay, first things first, I see a couple super chats, and I promise you, I think there's 3 that we've missed. I promise you, we'll get to them right away. But in regard to these city councillors not giving interviews to the Calgary Herald, and I'm the first to admit this about myself, I'm highly motivated by spite. It makes me a terrible Christian, but probably a really good opinion journalist. Now, it's funny because what's normally happening to us here at the Rebel is now happening to the Calgary Herald. They always tell me, Sheila, there's no such thing as a slippery slope, but these people are sliding down the hill pretty fast right past us.
Good point.
Yeah. And it's funny because these politicians will say to other politicians, you shouldn't be talking to the Rebel because they've expressed an opinion we don't agree with. Yeah. And the Calgary Herald normally agrees with them as a member of the mainstream media. Yeah. You totally shouldn't talk to the Rebel. And now the Calgary Herald, for writing something politicians don't agree with, is getting the Rebel treatment. So I guess the moral of the story is careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So far, Calgary Herald is not backing down on their editorial stance on this, but I would not be surprised to see them waffle and apologize and take it back, which I guess sets us apart from the Calgary Herald and the mainstream media, because when people don't want to talk to us because we've expressed a completely valid and legitimate opinion, we don't really care.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's an excellent point, Sheila.
Okay, I want to get over to our super chats because Space Dave 2000 was incredibly generous right off the hop today. He said, just jumped in. Do you believe the Liberals will win the next federal election, or will they be defeated? And are the Liberals just the NDP in disguise? David?
If I had to bet right now, Sheila, yes, I think the Justin Trudeau Liberals will be reelected. I can't believe I'm saying that based on their record, based on the scandals, based on the numerous faux pas. But the fact of the matter is, Sheila, based on their history to date, the sheer Conservatives should at least have a 10-point lead in the polls. And if the polls are accurate, and I agree, there's an asterisk on that, they might not be accurate. Here's the thing. It's in reverse. The Trudeau Liberals right now have about a 10-point lead based on the last poll I saw. I think you were talking about the testicular fortitude of Lindsay. This is a question I have about Mr. Scheer too. When, if ever, is he going to step up to the plate and show that he's more of a pit bull than a poodle? And right now, of course, the complicating factor is Mr. Bernier forming his own party, which potentially splits the vote. So as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan who learned a lesson the hard way for half a century about not betting with your heart, but betting with your head, if I had to put money on the election in 13 months, I would take, sadly, the Justin Trudeau Liberals.
Yeah, and I will just add another caveat to that. As conservatives, we need a strong NDP. And
Yes.
And we don't have that because we need a split on the progressive side for the vote. And there could not possibly be a more inept leader of the NDP right now than Jagmeet Singh. He's a flake. He doesn't know the issues. He doesn't even have a seat. He's really not all that concerned about getting a seat. He's hardly campaigning. And he's basically leveled the NDP's ability to fundraise. So I know it sounds odd as a conservative from Alberta cheering for a federal NDP, but really, we need a powerful NDP, and we're not seeing it.
You know what, Sheila? On the subject of Jagmeet Singh, I am predicting, well, I'm not predicting, but I'm saying it's in the realm of possibility that we might see in the federal NDP party what we saw in the Ontario PC party in January, which is a palace coup when Patrick Brown was disposed of. And I'm saying that for all the reasons you said, and one reason that you forgot, which is a huge reason. Since Jagmeet Singh has come into the federal NDP, they've only raised about $5 million. That is pathetic. To put that into perspective, to run a good federal election campaign in Canada, you need a war chest of at least $60 million. $5 million? That is terrible. There are so many NDP MPs right now that really have buyer's remorse, and I'm telling you, Thomas Mulcair is looking better and better by the day, because I think, with Jagmeet Singh, as they say in Alabama, this dog don't hunt.
Was it Alabama? I think we had this conversation before.
Or was it Alberta? Or was it another province or state that begins with A and ends with A? Please feel free to weigh in, hopefully as a super chat.
As a super chat. Actually, we have another one.
Okay.
So the next one is from Primpal 08. Gives us 5 smackers Canadian. And they ask, will the Democrats now focus their faux outrage at Keith Ellison? That incident happened recently, and there is actual medical evidence.
No, I doubt it, because there is, they don't even hide the fact that there's a double standard anymore, eh, Sheila?
No, I mean, this has been going on since the Clinton era. Yeah. This is part of the Democrat DNA now to basically completely ignore actual violent assaults and rape and even deaths. Let's talk about the Kennedys for a second. Yes. Deaths and attacks on women from within their own ranks because their politics are right, while conflating either incidents that didn't happen at all or just, awkward heterosexual male interactions with women as real, actual sexual assault. They're not going to talk about Keith Ellison. They're going to point fingers.
Oh, we got some technical difficulty there, Sheila.
Well, the first consideration for the parole board and the prison management.
Oh, I think
I don't know what happened there.
We saw a brief clip of Ralph Goodale, which is a good segment. By the way, I'll end your rant there. Sheila was saying not only did Bill Clinton get involved in an inappropriate relationship with a young lady. Let's not forget it happened at a workplace. So there is an
Yeah.
HR violation there too. But hey, nothing to see here, folks. They're Democrats, they're Clintons. Let's move along. But we saw briefly a clip. I think our trained broadcast professionals might be running it again. It's of Ralph Goodale. I mean, you were talking about some individuals that are challenged when it comes to testicular fortitude. Well, here's a guy that's challenged when it comes to his heart and his brain in terms of the Torrey Stafford murderer, Terry Lynn McClintock, getting transferred from a prison to a native healing lodge in Saskatchewan, which, if you didn't know better, you'd swear was a Motel 6. I mean, a comfy room, a kitchenette, children are there. And by the way, that's another funny thing, eh, Sheila? Here's somebody in the slammer for murdering an 8-year-old girl, and you're going to put her in an environment where other inmates, if we even call them that anymore, they're more like guests, I would say, have their children. Isn't this kind of a catastrophe waiting to happen?
It absolutely is. But for some of these people who, they come from, struggling backgrounds, it sure makes criminality look like the comfortable choice if you can end up in a healing lodge where there's no fences, there's no gates, there's not really any guards, there's just, it's more like dorm mothers as opposed to guards. I mean, and let's talk about McClintock here, Torrey Stafford's killer. She was convicted because she pled guilty to an assault that she committed while she was behind bars for Torrey Stafford's murder just 2 years ago. I mean, this woman is not on a fast track to rehabilitation. She's just a very successful scumbag who's figured out how to game the system from behind bars. And in that clip that we very nearly showed of Ralph Goodale, he calls McClintock's past actions like bad practices. Bad practices. That's what he called the rape and murder and disposal of this little girl like she was garbage in a pile of rocks. That's what he called what McClintock is doing. Bad practices. A
little girl, 8 years old, who was murdered, bludgeoned to death with a claw hammer. And I'll talk about the bad practices of Corrections Canada in a second, Sheila, because our trained broadcast professional team says they have the clip in its entirety and they're going to run it right now.
Great.
Well, the first consideration for the parole board and the prison management officials is public safety. To make sure the community is safe, to make sure that the institutions are safe, to make sure that the public is properly protected. Once they're satisfied of that, then the issue is how can this life that has obviously gone in a very bad direction be best prepared for the eventual conclusion of the sentence, which will come sooner or later? And are you going to make society safer by developing the circumstances in which that life can be changed for the better, or released cold turkey at the end of the sentence when there's no chance?
She's not going to be released till 2031, Mr. Goodale. That's a long way away. Why is she getting into this so early?
Well, the prison management officials have determined this is the best way to both rectify her bad practices in the past, but also to keep the public safe.
Bad practices. Sheila, whether or not you agree with this, the system as we have right now in Canada is, regardless of what your sentence is, you can earn a reduction in your sentence for good behavior. Now, Terry Lynn McClintock was in a maximum security facility. She got transferred a while ago to a medium security facility, got into a fight with another prisoner there in which she viciously beat her. Now, I'm thinking, that's the opposite of good behavior. That should have been a ticket back to maximum security prison. Instead, she's going to this Motel 6 healing lodge. Sheila, this does not compute.
There's another level of it not computing. Global News, to their credit, in a rare and outstanding act of journalism from them, they did a little bit of legwork into what it takes to get into these healing lodges. And as it turns out, to get into an Aboriginal healing lodge as part of your prison sentence, you don't have to be Aboriginal. You can self-identify as Aboriginal to get access to these Aboriginal healing laws. So like I said, McClintock is just a scumbag.
Qualified then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I don't know if McClintock is Aboriginal, and I don't really care because her track record says that she shouldn't be there. But if she isn't, she's figured out how to game the system and get herself on easy street.
And also, Sheila, we have in Canada in 2018 what I'm calling a race-based justice system. If you're Aboriginal, you qualify for a different kind of sentencing for these healing lodges. Right now, there's a big movement for a similar set of penalties for Black offenders to be treated like Aboriginals because of root causes and growing up in neighborhoods that are over-policed. I mean, can you imagine? So the iconic image of Lady Justice, you know, holding the scales in one hand and the sword in the other, and she's blindfolded. Well, the sword is being traded in for a pacifier, and the blindfold, she's wearing X-ray glasses now, Sheila.
Always with the pop culture references. Okay, we have X-ray glasses is pop culture.
Oh,
okay, we have a super chat. It's from Lulu Bobs. $5 Canadian, very generous of you, thank you. Was there an issue in the UK with Ezra being investigated for contempt of court? Is this true? Hope not, as we need him there in October for Tommy's next hearing. Do you know the details of this, David?
I don't. This might be some internet chatter. I haven't spoken to Ezra since he went over across the pond. Sheila, have you heard anything about this yourself?
Yes, I have. You see, David, when Ezra was, because, well, clear, the boss likes me better. So, anyway,
true.
when we were,
Marsha.
I know, just settle down, Jan. No, so what happened was when Ezra and Tommy were in the courthouse, Ezra took a video from within the courthouse, but not in any court type stuff, no proceedings or anything like that. He took a video with his cell phone out the window at the enormous crowd below, and it was sort of like a nice touching moment with Tommy and to see all that support. And the other journalists there tattled on Ezra. Like, Ezra didn't realize that it was something wrong, but they tattled on him. And I think they tattled on him because they don't want to show those compelling images of the enormous support that Tommy has. And I guess the secondary reason is whether or not you work for the state broadcaster, the BBC in the UK, you're always angling for that job, same as Canada, you know, with the CBC or the BBC. And so you better start acting and thinking like you work for the government and enforcing self-censorship. And that's sort of what came out of that. But being investigated, no, I don't think so.
But that is incredible, Sheila. I mean, just think about it. If anyone has any skin in the game regarding what Tommy is fighting for, it should be the media, the free press. And for them to tattle on something like this, you know, it goes back full circle, doesn't it, to what we were talking about with Kavanaugh and the Calgary Herald. You know what, guys? Be very careful what you wish for, okay?
Exactly. Now we have another super chat. It's from Nigel. It's £2. What is Sheila's favorite Chinese main meal? I've never thought of that. I'm not an exciting individual when it comes to dining. I would say just white rice, I guess.
Wait,
Someone's going to call me racist. I know. David, what's yours?
Well, you're very culturally insensitive. I hearken back to one of the greatest Chinese military men of all time, who they named the dish after. I am, of course, talking about General Tao chicken. And I'm sure if General Tao got into a fight, I don't care if it's boxing, mixed martial arts, you name it, with Colonel Sanders in terms of the chicken world, title. I'm putting everything I owe on General Tao. Yes, General Tao chicken. That's number one.
Okay, we have how exciting. We have another super chat from someone with a Russian first name. Russian first name YouTube for $2. It says Trudeau should go. Kavanaugh is innocent. Check on both points.
Yes, but here's the question, Sheila. I don't think you weighed in when we were talking about, or forgive me if I've already forgotten. What is your inkling for October 2019 when we have a federal election, presumably, in terms of the outcome? Do you think that the Trudeau Liberals are back, or are we going to see regime change?
I am a pessimist, I guess, in that regard. I would say that probably the Trudeau Liberals will get back in, maybe minority. The optimist in me sees a conservative minority with the People's Party of Canada being the kingmaker and controlling the agenda the way the Green Party controls the agenda, being the kingmaker in British Columbia. Ideally, for me, that's the ideal scenario because we get to see some of Bernier's really conservative free market ideas sort of setting the agenda, and the sheer conservatives having to suck it up and make peace with Bernier to get the job done. But I mean, that's really in fairy tale land. I see the Liberals getting back in.
Yeah, you know what? I do too at this stage, and pardon the pun. I know this is like crying over spilt milk, but the fact is, this Conservative Party leadership, going back to last May of 2017, went to 13 ballots, and Mr. Scheer got in with less than 2% over Maxime Bernier. And as you've adroitly pointed out in previous commentaries, it was several thousand dairy farmers. That was the tipping point. And I just wonder if things only tilted slightly the other way, that Bernier was leader of the Conservative Party. I think we're singing a different tune. That's my gut feeling. Complete hypothetical question, unless somebody invents a time-space continuum machine that we could go back and reverse things. But I'm getting into pop culture again, which
the really nerd references.
Oh, by the way, folks, for all this abuse I get for being a nerd, don't forget that Sheila here and Lady Menzoid, after Rebel Live, when we went to the Madison Tavern, you talk about nerds, they were playing Pokemon Go. They go, oh, look, I caught a Pikachu, right? You're just 1 degree away.
I would love to catch a Pikachu. I would love to.
See what
They're very elusive.
Look, she's hanging herself with her own words, folks. Sheila, with playing Pokemon Go in 2018, you're 1 degree away from BronyCon, my friend.
I would love to go to BronyCon because I would make all the hats that the bronies wanted. Yeah, I would love BronyCon. Okay. No, me and Lady Menzoid, we spend a lot of time waiting around for husbands, for kids, for husbands again. And so, you flip open your Pokemon Go and see what sort of Pokemon are kicking around. And it's just like a time killer. Keeps me off Twitter, I guess. I'd be on there all the time. Anyway, we have another super chat. Quit revealing secrets about me. You're such a blabbermouth. Anyways, Prempball 08 again with $5 Canadian. Talk about generous. This is the second super chat. It's the difference between justice and social justice. Justice is blind. Social justice sees everything through the lens of identity politics. You know what? I totally agree. Actually, I think social justice warriors and the 13 neo-Nazi LARPers that there are in all of North America, they really are the two sides of the same coin. They judge people on their cultural background, their social status, their income. Really, social justice is just racism by another name.
And you know what, Sheila? Indeed it is. And I call it the racism of lowered expectations, that because you are part of this group, we can't possibly expect you to live up to the same benchmark as other people, and therefore we're going to cut you some slack. That's patronizing, it's despicable, and it should be done away with.
I agree. David, we got a hockey question for you from Russian first name YouTube. $2 again for you to answer this question, which is more than I would ever pay, but this person has taken pity on you. It says, hello, Canadian friends. What does chirping mean? David, this is you.
Chirping? Well,
Chirping.
Yeah, chirping is
in
just,
hockey.
Well, isn't chirping just like to yell out, or something you like to do, Sheila, nag?
Yeah,
right?
I chirp you.
That's
I chirp
how I
you.
interpret chirping. I never thought that was a hockey specific term, though. Chirping.
I think that's where I hear it most used, is like hockey or sports connotations, at the face-off, and they'll chirp each other.
Yeah.
And so, that's chirping. So that's sort of crap talking, to use a more PC term.
Do I win a prize, Sheila?
No. Your prize is spending an hour on the internet with me.
Oh.
You're welcome.
What an embarrassment of riches.
I know. Okay, we have another one from Lee Stafford, another super chat. It's $2.99 in British pounds. And it says, thanks to the Rebel for supporting Tommy. And you know what? It's one of those things I'm really proud to say that we're doing, that despite, parting ways with Tommy, that we are principled enough to see when an injustice is happening and stand on the side of the right. And I heard from Ezra last night when he called his favorite employee, and he said that on the street, he can't walk down the street. People are just happy and grateful for all that he's done for Tommy.
And I want to thank Lee Stafford for that generous donation, Sheila. And folks, I also want to give a call out to Ezra. This is by no means a money-making exercise for us. Quite the contrary. We have to fundraise both for Tommy's legal defense, and every single penny goes towards it. And of course, it is not cheap to fly over to London, not cheap to stay in London, eat in London, and we have to fundraise for that. This is a principled stand, and it's all about freedom of speech. And again, how shameful that the media, the UK media that are based right there in London, would rather this all go away, or even worse, spin this to make out Tommy to be some insidious character that he is not. So thank you so much, Ezra. It is such a great pleasure working for you.
You're still not his favorite, David. You can suck up till you blue in the face.
I'm just trying to save my job right now.
Yeah, I know. Okay, there's one from Candice Mosdell, another super chat. Candice, this is very generous, both your super chat and your kind words. Candice says, love your work, Sheila. Go Alberta proud. Love the Rebels. Support of Tommy Robinson. Well, thank you. I guess for me, go ahead, David, interrupt me. That's fine.
I'm sorry, but I heard Rebel, I heard Sheila, I heard Ezra. Paraphrase Chryssia Freeland, what am I, chopped liver here?
David, there's only one person in the world that I would co-host with, and it is you.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's the only person they asked me to co-host with.
You see, folks, we have a groovy kind of love. We do.
David, what is the next, I got to keep this show moving here.
Next topic
What's the next thing?
Well, it's something you suggested. It's a beauty. It's distracted boyfriend meme is sexist. As if this is really what the nation, the once great nation of Sweden has to worry about. I'm wondering, here, the trained broadcast professionals are hot, they're already on this. And let's see, are we going to actually run the meme, guys, or... Oh, it's not a video. It's
not a video, David.
So
you got to prepare for these shows, David.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, there is, three very good-looking people, but the young gentleman in the blue plaid shirt is looking at the woman in the red top, as the presumably his girlfriend or wife in the blue top is giving him the proverbial stink eye. And believe it or not, this has got people certain people in an outrage. They've gone to some, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheila, it's a regulatory body, but it is the ultimate definition, thankfully, by the way, of a toothless tiger, because they have no power to ban it and no power to fund the people producing it. But what they can do is, shake their finger and go, now, that's very sexist. How is that sexist? Here's the thing, Sheila. I'm telling you, as a 100% heterosexual male, I am hardwired by eons of evolution to, turn my head to look at an attractive woman going by, because that is what it's all about. It's perpetuating the species. It is to, I got the trained broadcast professionals nodding at me, but you guys do it too. You know it. And if I saw a woman like that in that red top, my head is going to swivel around like it's a magnet, clinging onto a piece of steel. I got to tell you, I'm just honest. I wish it weren't so, but it is so. And I'll tell you why I wish it wasn't so. When you're driving, this is a cause for distraction. It really is. And I've had one or two close calls, let me tell you, by looking at a busty pedestrian in a tank top. But hey, evolution made me do it, baby. What can I tell you?
David, you couldn't do any harm in that little electric abomination that you drive. But I mean, this is a government agency in Sweden determining that, just like a meme, like a jokey meme that even Princess Dolly Parton has used in the past, determining that it's sexist. I mean, I guess, like you say, eons and eons of genetic predisposition to the propagation of the species now is somehow sexist. And let's talk about what this is sexist about. If it's sexist about anything, it's that men can't control themselves on the street, or that you would be like buffoonish enough to swivel your head around, when I know you guys are a little more clandestine when you're checking out other women instead of swiveling your head around like a big dumb goofball. Or at least I hope that's how you'd behave, David.
But you know what, Sheila? Let me add something here. Do you think maybe by those who are complaining, there's a certain amount of jealousy going on? And I remember, once upon a time I used to write for the trade magazine, Marketing Magazine, that covered the advertising industry in Canada. In the early 90s, there was a Swatch billboard campaign, and it featured a busty model, which resulted in a petition. And the words of the petition were hilarious, which was to say, not only are the model's breasts big in the ad, but they appear to be gravity-defying. Oh my goodness, we can't have big-breasted women with gravity-defying mammaries on the billboards of Toronto. And I'm wondering, maybe the people complaining about the ads, maybe they kind of wish they had large gravity-defying breasts? Just saying.
Yeah, they always look exactly how you think they'd look, don't they? They always do. This is Sweden. Like I was saying to you over email, the whole country needs a mulligan. They need to start from the beginning. They have the very first feminist government, or that's what they like to say. Sorry, Trudeau. Sweden beat you to it. But they also have one of the highest instances of sexual assault in all of Europe. And actually, BBC did the legwork here, and I just wrote down some quick notes. Again, in a startling act of journalism from the BBC, they actually looked at the police the court conviction rates, and they discovered that up to 50% of men convicted of rape and attempted rape in Sweden are foreign-born. That's from the state broadcaster.
No, you can't say things like that, Sheila. You can't say things like that.
I mean, but that's the sort of stuff, while this is happening, like while actual sexual assaults are happening, the Swedish government, the Swedish feminist government, has a whole broadcast standards council policing memes on the internet for sexist connotations. The whole country needs to be just started again.
Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, but eons ago, weren't there Vikings sailing out of Sweden? You know, I mean, what the hell happened to that culture? And right now, just for those stats that you've cited, and the fact that there's no political will in Sweden whatsoever to stem this tide, I think we are looking at specimen number one in all of Western Europe of a country committing cultural suicide due to political correctness.
I agree. And look how far they've come. Like you said, the Vikings, let's be a little more recent. They're the country of the Swedish bikini team.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those days? Like that's completely gone.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore. You know, we have a couple super chats though. So I know you could probably talk about the Swedish bikini team all day, but Joyce Reeves gives us $2. Joyce, I don't see a comment there. I'd love to read your comment if you have one, and I'll check for one. I'll keep checking. But you give us $2, but no comment. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe she's just giving you the silent treatment, Sheila. What do you think about that?
Maybe that's $2 for you, David. It's $2 for you. Joyce felt bad for you. So
it all goes into the community chest, folks.
Yes. Okay, we have another one right under that from VZix, and it's $2.79 Canadian. And they say, is faith being untreated or unfairly treated in the race for mayor in Toronto? David, what do you think?
You know what? I will say this. Again, if the polls are correct, and maybe they are, maybe they're not, and Faith is the number 3 candidate after John Tory and Jennifer Keesmaat, then I don't understand the idea of banning her from debate, Sheila, in which there are candidates that I can't even remember their name. They're tracking so low down the list. You know, it's just like a story I covered here for the Rebel Media during the provincial debates, and you had NDP, Liberal, Progressive Conservative, and the Green Party. But wait a minute, there were the Trillium Party actually had an elected member of provincial parliament, Jack McLaren. Why did the Trillium Party get kicked to the curb, and the Green Party that had nobody in the legislature get a spot? And basically, it's the media party darlings that are deciding who gets an invite, and they come up with all kinds of cockamamie rules. And I think in relation to the provincial debates, I think the benchmark should be, as long as you have at least one member of parliament, then you get to debate, which was not the case with the Greens. It is now, because the leader did win his seat in Guelph. So if we're going, you know, it doesn't work on a seat system in municipal politics, but if we're going by polling numbers, if you have a cutoff, top 6, top 5, top 4, well then I'd say, Faith Goldie has to be there. What do you think?
I agree. And actually, that brings me to our next super chat question. It's from St. Joan of Arc for $5 Canadian. And she asks, why aren't you behind Faith Goldie with a principled stance? She's getting shafted, and even City News Toronto and CTV is covering it now. And she's a Rebel alumni. I'll take exactly the same position of David as David does, and I'll just put also one disclaimer. I generally am not all that interested in Toronto municipal politics, being a world away from it, except in instances where bad ideas threaten to spill over and be my problem. For example, John Tory and his pursuit of a handgun ban across the entire country because he can't get his act together in Toronto and deal with gang violence there. So I'm not paying that close attention to the municipal race in Toronto, except whereas it affects me and every other law-abiding gun owner in the entire country. That being said, I did see a video out from Faith yesterday, and I found it actually quite appalling. What it looks like is she gave money to CP24, which is, I guess, like a Bell News subsidiary in Toronto. Or Rogers, I'm not sure, Bell, correct me if I'm wrong. And really, it doesn't even matter. But she gave them a check to run a campaign ad. And they called her back a week or 2 weeks later, it looks like, and said, sorry, Faith, we're not running your campaign ad. And I think that's in violation of CRTC regulations that every candidate should be able to have equal access to advertising. Now, that doesn't mean that you get equal advertising. You get what you pay for, but they can't turn down your ad because they disagree with you politically. That's crazy. And it looks like that's what's happening. And Faith actually had the good sense to record her phone call and published it. And they couldn't give her a response as to why they were just giving her money back. They kept saying over and over, we're sorry, we can't run your ad. We're sorry, we can't run your ad. And I started to feel bad for the guy who had to call her because it clearly wasn't his decision and he didn't know what the hell to do. But that's outrageous. And even Faith's political enemies should be at least outraged that this is an affront to democracy. If she is indeed polling third, if she's a candidate on the ballot, she should be able to buy ads. And it looks like she's getting the shaft in Toronto.
But Sheila, one key thing you said, and I'm not sure if you're 100% sure of it, you were saying that under CRTC rules, they don't have the right to refuse a candidate's ad during an election campaign. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, that's, I'm just going to quickly Google that so that we're all clear. But that was sort of what the screen capture that
because if
that
if
Faith
that's the
had in her
case,
video.
then you know, this is like a gift to Faith because this will get into the news cycle in that she's going after them for breaking election laws, and for CP24 to, you know, put the clamps on freedom of speech this way, maybe they should rebrand themselves to CCCP24. Or was it CPP24? What was the Soviet Union? What did they put on their jersey? I can't, you know what I'm trying to say.
CCCP.
Okay, then. There you go.
CCCP.
Something like that. Something that evokes the freedom and the liberties and the pursuit of justice of the old Soviet Union. There you go. There's your CP24.
Yeah. And for some reason, I can't Google search that. But maybe somebody in the office will do that for me because I'm hosting a show. But in Faith's video, she actually posted a screenshot of the CRTC advertising regulations. So if that is accurate, then it sure looks like CP24 is breaking the law. That's the caveat I'll make. If that is accurate, then boy, it sure looks bad. And like you say, it's a gift to Faith. If you don't like her and you don't want her to make news, then quit doing things that put her in the news.
And
like,
you know what?
People aren't thinking.
And maybe Faith is smart and savvy enough, and I wouldn't put it past her to know that it would be rejected. Therefore, make it a news. You know what it reminds me of, Sheila? Every year this happens, you'll see, for example, a website like Ashley Madison. This actually happened a few years ago. This is a website that facilitates extramarital affairs amongst married people. And they'll go to the NFL and say, here's our $5 million check. We want to buy a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl. And the NFL, which is their right, says, that doesn't run with our brand values. The answer is no. And then what Ashley Madison does is they send out a press release, and they end up getting millions and millions of dollars of free advertising. Always cognizant, always knowing that their ad was going to be rejected. More on that later. Our trained broadcast professional has the rule. Here we go. Can you see that, Sheila?
No.
Okay. If a broadcaster sells advertising time to one candidate or party, other candidates and parties must also be given the opportunity to buy commercial airtime from that same broadcaster. Well, Sheila, I'm not a lawyer, but that looks, dead to rights to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty clear. And, it seems as though Faith knew the law. And it looks like CP24 is counting on this visceral response of the left to think that the rules only apply to people they like and opinions they like. And that's just not how the rule of law works in Canada.
Well, Sheila, we are out of landing strip. I'm afraid we have to bring this big Boeing 747 down and, sign off. So listen, my friend, I know you're out in farm country. I think you got to harvest your cucumbers and rapeseed and all that sort of stuff. So get on your boots and your windbreaker and get on your tractor. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. It's always a joy to host Battleground when the big boss man is away. Ezra will be back next week. You'll see him next Friday. He'll have tons of stuff to say about the Tommy trial. In the meantime, have yourself a great and safe weekend. See ya.
Yeah, thanks.